Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to this HEART webinar where we will discuss the people at the heart of smart homes and how to enjoy the benefits and prevent the pitfalls. The pitfalls of this new generation of smart homes, and especially in the context of the energy renovations. So my name is Sébastien Garnier. I work as Innovation and Project Manager at Housing Europe. Very briefly about HEART. What is HEART? It's a EU Horizon 2020 project. It's an acronym that stands for Holistic Energy and Architectural Retrofit Toolkit. And indeed, the core of the HEART is a cloud-based computing platform that includes decision-making and energy management features. The HEART Toolkit thus becomes the heart of the building, regulating its energy consumption and its energy flows. It involves 16 partners from 10 different countries, and it has 2 social housing providers and that are managing the pilot, one in Italy, Acer, and another one in France, EMH in Lyon. The project started in October 2017 and will have a duration of 4 years, and its geographical focus is Central and Southern Europe. The coordinator is the Politecnico de Milano, and as I said, the main topic today of this discussion will be how to put the people at the heart of smart and energy efficient homes and look at the benefits and the pitfalls for this. And for this we have 3 speakers with us today, which I will briefly introduce. So first of all, Claudio Del Pero. He's senior researcher at the Politecnico di Milano at the Department of Architecture, Built Environment and Construction Engineering. He has a PhD in building physics and technology, and over the years he was involved in various national and international research projects and activities, as well with the International Energy Agency. He's the co-author of many scientific publications on the exploitation of renewable energy sources, energy efficiency in the built environment, and energy management. Today you are especially with us, Claudio, because of your involvement, of course, in the Horizon 2020 HEART project, and where you are indeed very active as a Politecnico is the coordinator. So welcome very much, Claudio. Our second guest today is Stefano Sannini. He is responsible for user experience, a research leader at Assist Digital. He has a product designer background, mainly interested in developing new products as a result of scientific research on users' needs. Stefano focuses on user-centered design approach through ethnography, analytic field studies, contextual inquiry, and user behavior modeling. Welcome, Stefano. And our third speaker today will be Massimo Caglia, who is a lead scientist at the European Commission Joint Research Center within the Digital Economic Unit. You are responsible for projects addressing the evolution of the space data economy and the geospatial sector and new forms of governance in digitally transformed societies. You were the lead editor of the GRC policy flagship report on artificial intelligence, which was launched a few months ago, and which I highly recommend as well to learn more about the multiple challenges and opportunities of artificial intelligence from various perspectives: ethical, economical, legal, and societal. So I will now give the floor to you, Claudio. Welcome, everyone, and so you can introduce the HEART project, please.
So welcome to everybody. You can see in this first slide the main information about HEART project. So HEART stands for Holistic Energy and Architectural Retrofit Toolkit. So it's a project that is aimed to provide a toolkit, a set of technologies and also ICT tools to support the energy and architectural retrofit of existing buildings. In particular, we are in this moment in the middle, more or less, of the project. We are almost at the end of the second year, and so we will have the first demonstration during this summer. So at the end of this year, we will also start to record the results of the first demo site. We are the coordinator as Politecnico di Milano of the project, and here you can see the website, the LinkedIn, and the Twitter page of the project to get information and remain up to date. So the consortium, it's quite big. We are 16 partners. Within this consortium, we have 4 research entities, so university and a research institute, the URAC of Bolzano. But moreover, we have a lot of small, medium enterprises that are the companies that already were selected because of their technologies, and within the project we are trying to improve and to integrate such technologies to get a synergistic toolkit. So now let's analyze which are the different objectives of this project. The first one is to develop a systemic and cost-optimal solution for the energy retrofit. So more in detail, we want to provide solutions that are able to decrease the installation time by at least 30% compared to traditional construction technologies, and moreover to ensure a payback period of the investment below 15 years. That for a deep retrofit intervention is not so easy. The second objective is to develop, update, and adapt innovative technologies for their systemic integration. As I mentioned before, we are trying to integrate existing technologies to get a systemic and synergistic operation. That is not common in the retrofit of existing building. The third objective is to foster buildings smart upgrade. So we want to we want the existing building to become smart buildings. Also, for outdated residential existing building, we want to put such technologies to transform such building into modern smart buildings that are able to interact with the grid, interact with the ICT systems. Then objective number 4 is to support and improve the decision-making process. So we, with the cloud platform I will introduce later, we will give a strong support to the designers and the decision maker to understand which is the best way under the technical and economic point of view to retrofit a certain building. And objective number 5, last but not least, to improve the energy financing. So we want to, by reducing the risk on the related to the energy retrofit, and so the uncertainty of the energy performance of the retrofitted building, we are trying to support the energy retrofit financing and to increase, this is the objective, by 20% the attractiveness of the energy retrofit investment in the residential building retrofit sector. Then the application context, you can see we are focused on the Central and Southern Europe, where we have, let's say, some climatic conditions that require both heating but also cooling, and obviously domestic hot water energy consumption. And the application target are multi-story residential buildings of, let's say, the second half of the last century. So you can see in the picture the typical condominium building with 4 or 5 floors and a very simple shape and typically very low energy quality. Then here you can see the 9 key elements of the toolkit. We have some technologies for the retrofit of the envelope, so a multifunctional external thermal insulation. Number 2, we have retrofit components and techniques for existing windows. Then number 3, we have universal PV tiles to generate renewable electricity. Then we have number 4, a cloud platform, and I will explain later more in detail which is the function. Then we have some DC smart fine coils that are designed to replace existing radiators without changing the pipes, the hydronic distribution structure. Then number 6, we have thermal storage. Number 7, we have a battery park that is, let's say, it's an optional, it's not a product of the research, but because we know that nowadays it's not cost effective to store electricity by means of batteries, but we are pretty sure that in the next years the batteries will be for sure cost effective, so the toolkit is already designed to interact with batteries. Then number 8, we have a direct current heat pump that is the centralized generation system for heating, cooling, and domestic hot water. Also in this case is powered in direct current, so directly from PV tiles without any kind of transformation. Last but not least, number 9, we have a multi-input, multi-output converter we call MIMO. That is the element, the connection element that is powering all the components within the toolkit, and so also managing the interaction with the grid. And here you can see more in detail the structure of the cloud-based platform. So this is, let's say, it's an external brain of the toolkit. All the information are exchanged between the platform and the building, and this platform is used before the retrofit intervention as a decision support system, because this platform contains a simplified energy model of the building to be retrofitted. So the designer can interact with the platform by providing all the needed information about the retrofit building. Then the platform will run a simplified energy model and will identify the best retrofit intervention among all the possibilities, and so to give support very easily to the decision maker or to the designer to understand which is the best option for the retrofit. Then, after the retrofit, this platform will act as an energy management system, so will interact with the retrofitted building and with all the technologies installed in the retrofitted building, getting data and finding the best operating scenario, and then give back signal and command to the appliances installed in the building. So it's a energy management system. And also this platform will recover information from the grid and from the weather forecast service, for example, because it integrates an adaptive predictive control logic that is able to understand which is the optimal operational strategy for the building, considering also the future behavior. So, for example, the future weather condition in 48 or 25 hours. So you can see here a better explanation about the decision-making phase. So what the decision-making tools do is just to simulate all the feasible, possible retrofit scenario and identify the cost-optimal hypothesis. And then after the retrofit, so in the operational phase, the cloud platform acts as an adaptive predictive energy management tool. So we will constantly compare the expected energy consumption with the real energy consumption, which is made with the monitoring data acquired from the building, and we will promptly identify faults or anomalies in the energy behavior of the building, and to send such information to all the stakeholders, so to the user, for example, to the energy manager, to the investor, to allow to immediately put in practice correction measure, and to avoid the energy performance and moreover the economic performance of the investment will go out from the prediction. So thanks you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Claudio. That will really give a good view of the whole project and all the different challenges we are working on within the HEART project. So our next speaker is Max Kraglia. Just before that, I wanted to present very briefly a publication that we actually launched yesterday, which is called "The Future of Smart Energy Homes in 32 Words." It is a glossary of terminology that we produced. Like you said in your presentation, Claudio, we are working with cloud-based computing platforms, decision support systems, DSS, BEMS, BIPV, MIMOS, LCC, ETs. Not everyone is familiar with these terms, and still a lot of people are interested, and will need to use these technologies in the future. So this is why we drafted this very, I think, accessible glossary of terms, and I invite everyone to have a look at it. Everyone which is interested in smart homes and new technologies around deep renovation. You can find the report on our website, housingeurope.eu, or through our Twitter account @housingeurope. As is mentioned in the glossary, this is the first version, so any feedback is appreciated. If we forgot some magical words that everyone needs to know in this field, then let us know. So like I said, our next speaker will give like kind of an outside perspective from his field and from his perspective on these different challenges is Max Kraglia from the European Commission Joint Research Center. So welcome again, Max. Thank you very much for joining us in this HEART webinar. My first question is very easy. What is your work at the Joint Research Center about?
Okay. Well, European Commission, as you know, is quite a complex organization. So it's for your audience, I'm sure they'll be familiar to part of it, but since your project is funded by the European Union budget. But in essence, the European Commission is organized in different directorates that have responsibilities for different policies of the European Union. The Joint Research Center is one of these directorates, Directorate General JRC, and essentially what we do is independent research to support the policies of the European Union. And we say independent, it means independent of industrial interests or national interests. So the idea is to have, if you want, an independent voice, which doesn't mean we do not collaborate with everybody else, but of course it's also important to have some independence. So in essence, we cover all the areas of research that are relevant to European policies. And about 3-4 years ago, we had a new strategy. You will find the link on that slide that identified the 10 new priorities on which we needed to identify to reflect the fact that the world changes and there are new priorities in terms of policies. To give you an example, some of the old priorities were, for example, energy and transport. They continue to be a priority. Some of the new priorities were more the social implication of the financial crisis, migration, and digital transformation. Those were some of the new areas on which we needed to do research. So by digital transformation, we mean essentially the convergence of all the digital technologies that are coming together and they're affecting every aspect of our lives, where social life, working lives, and our interaction and the way we relate as human beings. And so we have started looking into this area of digital transformation from many points of view. And clearly, among the many technologies that are relevant for digital transformation, you can think of artificial intelligence, you can think of blockchain, you can think of 3D printing, genetic modifications. There's many of them. Clearly, artificial intelligence is very relevant because in a way, it goes hand in hand with these big trends that we have seen over the last few years that is called datification. So the sense to which now every aspect of our daily life and daily interactions, whether we are an individual, a company, or a government, are basically transformed into digital signals and digital data, which is then analyzed, aggregated, often resold to third parties. And so we are living in a world of increasingly big data, but to make sense of all these vast quantities of data, you increasingly need automated methods, like artificial intelligence, because otherwise you clearly wouldn't be able to make sense of such enormous amounts of data. So we prepared, as you mentioned in the introduction, we prepared a flagship report on artificial intelligence, which we published last December, to try to provide a multiple perspective on what are the key issues from a European point of view. And so in this report, which again you can download, we provided the link, we look at what is the position of Europe in the face of a growing global competition between the US and China to dominate artificial intelligence. So what is the position of Europe? How should Europe trying to find its own way towards developing artificial intelligence? And we have looked at various aspects, from the technological, the data, the economic, the social, the legal, the ethical. And clearly the ethical dimension is one that for Europe is enormously important, together with using artificial intelligence to support the primary goals of the Union in terms also of democracy, equity, non-discrimination, so all the clear values that are underpinning the European treaties. So we provided that report, and that came basically hand in hand with a coordinated action plan of the European Union. So that was launched on the 7th of December, where essentially all the member states recognize that they cannot address artificial intelligence alone. They need to work together, particularly in the face of this global competition. And so there is this coordinated action plan, which now envisages investments of up to 20 billion euros a year for 10 years on artificial intelligence across the Union in a coordinated way. And as part of that communication, it is envisaged that there would be a service to also monitor this investment and monitor the effects that this investment has in developing artificial intelligence in Europe for Europe. And this service is called AI Watch, and basically we are responsible for this service. So what it means is that we have just launched it, we are building it up. It means that we have to do a number of things: monitor the evolution of the technology, monitor the uptake of the technology in different sectors. So, for example, agriculture, transport, energy, construction. So gradually see how it is taken up, what social and what economic impact the uptake of this technology has. Look at how it is evolving the overall landscape of companies and the economy in Europe related to artificial intelligence, and basically provide also indices that allow us to monitor over time this progress. That is basically the work that we are going to do from now for the next 7 to 10 years in collaboration with the member states. So these are the sort of kind of institutional activities, but we're also doing some research activities, some more forward-looking research activities. And in this case, one of the projects that I'm running is called DigiTranscope, and is about the relationship between digital transformation and governance. And we are focusing in particular not so much about how to govern the processes of digital transformation, because this is part of the, if you want, more institutional activities. What we're looking is how can we exploit some of the characteristics of digital transformation for new forms of governance. And one of the examples that we are working on relates to energy and energy transition. So that's the link to your work, and it seemed very complementary to the presentation that we heard just before about your project. So here we are doing two things that are relevant. At the moment, we are working very close with colleagues in the Netherlands because it's one of the countries that is most advanced in terms of understanding the digital transformation and working on it. And they have developed also a digital twin, so a digital model for the entire Netherlands in different platforms. And one of the platforms is Minecraft, which is a well-known gaming environment. And basically, they have used all the official data from the cadastre, from the water boards, from the transportations, from all the open data that is available in the Netherlands to create a one-to-one digital model of the entire country. So basically, you put an address, your address, and you find your house. And basically, it's a 3D representation of the house. But then over the last 2 years, they have 20,000 children playing Minecraft and playing this version of Minecraft, which is called geocraft.nl. And basically, they have used Street View to then render their own house and color it and put the windows and put everything. And this has created enormous opportunities to then involve children in also planning. So we last year in June, we were in the Ajax Stadium in Amsterdam, where 500 children were playing Minecraft to help design their neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood that is very socially divided around the stadium. So there are very rich areas and very poor areas, and all together, all the children were playing to design their future. And there's another version of this Geocraft, which is called EcoCraft. And basically, it is aimed at energy transition. So I've learned teaching at children the various options for making their house more energy efficient, but also involves, and this is done in schools as part of the curriculum. We are doing some tests, both in Amsterdam and in Warsaw. But also the children get not only learning themselves through playing, but also they involve their parents. And so it's a way of really sort of working through. So in this game, they have different insulation materials for walls, for the floors, for the roof, and they can, or for double glazing. And they can also put solar panels on their house, on their building. And depending on the different options, there is a model that runs in the background that shows them how much they spend and how much energy they create. And so this is one of the experiments that they're running, and it's one way of doing it. And the other experiment, I'm just conscious of the time, so I'll close very quickly, is we are trying to use profiling, which is one of the characteristics of digital transformation, sort of this targeting and profiling of consumers. We are trying to use it for policy, for public policy. And that is very complementary to the work of your project because you're working at the level of retrofitting. We are working at the level to see how can we identify those geographical areas and those groups that need retrofitting most. So they could be single parents with children or no income, or they could be the elderly. Where are they located? So instead of having a policy that provides subsidies across the city, let's try and identify where we should provide investment so that it benefits immediately the people who need it most. And so we are trying to look at how to use administrative data and data provided directly by the public in order to create this profiling, and how to use digital transformation to find new forms of policy that helps in that direction. So I'll leave it at that, and I've left you some links, and that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Max. That's incredibly interesting what you just told us. Indeed, using new technologies and involving children, which maybe if we would do that more, then cities would look and probably function a little bit better sometimes. No? And also your example about how to focus more on really the groups that need energy renovations and retrofits the most is especially interesting for our sector, our members that manage social, public, and cooperative housing. So
maybe what we can do is, in the coming months, we can again continue this dialogue and find, an opportunity to get together so that basically we can integrate some of the results of your projects in the work we are doing, and vice versa, see how we can scale up some of the work that we're doing in Amsterdam in some of your partners.
Yes, that sounds like an excellent idea, and that's already a very tangible outcome of this webinar. So we will definitely do that. Thank you very much, Max. I just want to mention to the people that want to know a little bit more about the HEART project, the different ways you can find information. You can, of course, go to the website, which is www.heartproject.eu. You can register there to get and receive updates through the newsletter. There is also a Twitter account, which is HEART Project EU, all written together. There is also a LinkedIn account, HEART Project EU. And of course, you can join us at my email address, which you can see now on the screen. So let's go to our third speaker of today, Stefano Zanini, responsible for user experience and research leader at Assist Digital. Hello, Stefan. Welcome.
Hello. Can you see me?
I can see you and hear you very clearly. So
okay.
Thank you for joining us at this webinar. I will ask the first question to you directly, so you can also introduce yourself. I give a brief introduction already, but tell us a little bit more about your role at Assist Digital, and especially for those that are not very familiar with UX, user experience.
So, what is UX? UX stands for user experience, and why is that important? Well, it's a simple fact of life that we tend to reject negative experiences, and we tend to embrace and follow positive experiences, unless some people is unnatural. So basically, we tend to like sweets, and we hate very bitter things. The same is in all our experiences. What has been noted in the last few decades is that actually services and digital services and interfaces are exactly the same. So experiences that are really bad, like they imply effort, anxiety, etc., are rejected by people, and then the products that are associated are not going to be used. And if the experiences instead are fulfilling, they actually have an utility and they are very usable and flawless, that people then tend to use these services and products that provide these experiences. Is that important? Yes, it is important, because for example, we have Apple, that is a brand that has invested a lot in user experience and is now becoming $1 trillion company. Okay, so there is no other companies in that digital domain that has a success of anything close to Apple at all. So basically, it is also important economically. So now, basically, why the UX can be negative, and how comes that there are a lot of products that have a bad UX? Well, the reason is that for many years that the industry, especially industry that was focused on bringing technical innovation, was technocentric. So that means that basically they designed systems that were maybe innovative. These systems involved procedures. They affected touch points and interactions, and then at the end, basically, there were experiences on the customer side, and the experiences are an almost accidental result of design choices that are based on chosen technological framework. That is bad. Okay, and so if the things are designed that way, they're very likely to be not successful on the user point of view. The user-centric approach, on the other hand, is completely the reverse. So we design experiences, we determine what they should be, and therefore we design interactions that can provide those experiences. The touch points has to be designed to give these interactions. Procedures and systems are a consequence of that. So technological choices are made in order to provide the experiences that have been designed. So experiences are a result of a careful design based on research and design testing, iterative cycles with sample of real users, because you want to make sure that these experiences are the right ones. So if things are designed that way, then we have fulfilling user experience and we have successful products. So talking about how we do that, we do basically analysis that are based on several techniques and methodologies on the field, and the product that we get from that are customer journeys. So basically what people do, what phases they go through, and what touch points they need to have, and what pain points have to be solved. After that, basically we can have all the data that we want to produce prototypes. Prototypes can be low fidelity. Here you can see some images of role prototypes for home automation, in which we basically just try to understand what roles the different objects and items in the house have. And then we can have high fidelity prototypes, like actually interactive prototypes that we can test. So doing like that, so providing basically iterative design based on trial and error with prototypes, we can make sure that we have fulfilling experiences and therefore successful products. So talking about the world of home automation, what are the trends? Well, the trends at the moment are relatively, we're relatively early in the world of home automation. The thing basically is that there is a struggle to provide affordable solutions. And so products that can provide the experiences that we want, that are also affordable to the people that buy them. So at the moment, what we've got is the kind of objects, and they tend to have hubs. So basically, they can be connected home appliances, interactions with some systems such as, for instance, thermostats, and intelligent-based products that tend to anticipate user needs. Then there can be other things like, for instance, captured data and of course, omni-channel experience that can be done through different channels to communicate with the users. And also the idea is to try to create hubs, so basically things that can bring together different systems. Now, there is a very different ecosystem in different markets, like North America, Europe, and Asia are very different. They're all very hot in home automation, but they see it in a different way. Like in the United States, it's mainly on home safety and a little bit less on utilities, wellness, appliances, and entertainment. And they are quite ahead in having hubs like virtual assistants powered by AI that can be a hub to all the connected services in the house. This is actually very good because it makes it a kind of a standard in which companies can design their IoT systems that can connect to these hubs using it as an interface. So in fact, the IoT companies are flourishing in the US. In Asia, they tend to have, again, the trend is the same, but they have a kind of more pervasive ecosystems. In fact, they have, for instance, things like WeChat in China, in which it is a full ecosystem that is all encompassing and basically brings all the kind of services all together. In India is more about hospitality sector and hotels and things like that, because the housing market is a bit behind compared to China and Japan. In Europe, there are basically some combination of things like an aging population, high healthcare expenditure per capita, and then basically there is also a problem with energy, because Europe is kind of dependent from abroad in energy supplies, and therefore there is a lot of stress on green technology adoption. And we see that is kind of like Italy, for instance, this my home country, is similar to the US in some respects, but because 31% of the market is home safety, and the rest is smaller percentages. Now, I wanted just to show you that home automation, in order to combine the affordability and basically the user experience thing, is becoming successful if the products are simple. So, like IKEA is producing a home automation kit in which basically can command different appliances such as lights through apps and connected objects, and is going to be very cheap. And that's, I think, it's a very sound approach. Like another thing is ENI and British Gas. They had a partnership to make smart thermostats that are, again, IoT connected devices, and they're also very cheap in terms of products. And if we're talking about fully integrated home automation systems, such as produced by domotics companies, and going to be a lot of installed products, then they're not going to be successful, and they're not successful at all at the moment, because they're very expensive, and they require experts to install them. So we see, for instance, a very good product is the Nest thermostat, that you probably really know very well about. It's a single object. There's no installation cost whatsoever. It kind of is AI empowered, so that basically can predict user activities, and can predict the user activities and act according to that. So there is a kind of a recipe of a good product for home automation. There are other examples. I'm going to go forward very fast. One of the things that I think will be the next thing would be to have these objects and systems to be aware of things like positioning of the user, so that they can act based on the location of the user. If basically you're going toward your house, then the thermostat will turn the heating on, because it is going to prepare your house for your arrival. And an interesting thing, there are also some products like sorry, just wanted to show another one. There are products that are also aware of the movement in the house. So there is the possibility of using, for instance, the Wi-Fi connection and the interaction of people with the microwaves in the house to understand their position and what they're doing. Okay, so I think my time is up.
Yes. Thank you very much, Stefano. That was really, really interesting, and also very in complement with the previous presentation from Max, which looked from also more a policy level, macro European level, and you are really diving into the homes of the people. We are almost at the end of the webinar now, but I have some questions for both of you still. Well, one of the questions is related to, of course, we are seeing that there is a huge potential for these kind of smart devices and artificial intelligence and big data. But of course, there are also challenges that needs to be resolved, and maybe some safeguards that need to be taken. For instance, Stefano, you just mentioned, that people can be tracked in their homes. We will really get very close to their privacy and to their intimacy. And we notice in the social housing sector and in the public housing sector that, the level of acceptance is not very high always, and there might be some resistance for this. Do you have any ideas about how to solve this? How to have a bigger rollout of these kind of smart devices? Because the opportunities are huge. How do you work with this? This is really about user experience, and it's also about what Max said about the ethical side and the social side of this. Maybe Max, do you have any ideas?
Well, I think that indeed this is one of the key questions about all of these technologies about digital transformation. So there are opportunities, but there are clearly also challenges from the point of view of privacy, the point of view of ethics, the point of view, even from a technical point of view, the interoperability between all of these devices, the security, the cybersecurity dimension, which is also very important. So there's a whole host of both technical and social and organizational challenges. Clearly, one of the, we are taking two actions at the European level. One is to really start in earnest a conversation about all these ethical dimensions. That's why there are dedicated groups looking at ethical guidelines and how to try and build both security by design and ethical by design application and devices. And the other one is, if you want more at the social level, to identify application areas that can provide some clear benefits to individuals. And I think that clearly, opportunities of energy saving, warmer environments or cooler environments, depending on the season and the occasion, in the home is affordability is a very important issue. You can think that in health, you equally can find applications that we can resonate immediately to the benefits of the individual. I think that we want to be careful not to portray these as purely technical discussions and that improve the efficiency and effectiveness that would benefit only a few and that will create a lot of disbenefits to the many. And I think that is clearly something that from the outset, we need to do it from the very beginning. Otherwise, the things will become very quickly polarized, and then it becomes very difficult once you have an entrenched position that this is a bad thing, and I don't want to get anywhere near it. So that's why I think we have to be very considerate and very deliberate on the way we approach any of these applications in any sector.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Stefano?
Perhaps I could add what is the commercial perspective and what the industry kind of thinks in terms of these privacy issues and ethical issues. And it's a very different between the West and Europe in particular and Eastern countries such as China, for instance. But China is entirely government-centered, so the government has an interest in monitoring people. They even have a social scoring system now. So what they do basically is they have funneled everything into these large hubs, large applications such as WeChat, which of course the government has control and access, and it uses for its own purposes. Is a nightmarish scenario, but in Europe it's a different thing because of course we've got democracy, but also we have regulations like the recently introduced GDPR regulations basically prohibits the conservation of individual data like recordings and things like that, unless you are notified. You notify the user about that, and also you have to tell them for how long you're going to store the data and things like that. So at the moment, the industry has a strong interest for commercial purposes to go to the Chinese way, So actually, there are these huge industries that would like to have the data, would like to know what are your habits, would like to build also services on that, like marketing automation, try to basically understand or having business intelligence what you might need in order to sell you something. So how do they come along with that? So the idea is that basically we'll have this, some of it will be achieved by permissioning, like you basically you buy something, you buy a new home automation system and device, and you agree to some terms and conditions, of course. And one of the most common terms and conditions would be to share the data in an aggregated form, so it's not individual, so it's not actually cannot be addressed to you personally, but you can give this aggregated data to third parties. And these third parties will then run algorithms and things like that. So there's one way to do it. Another way to do it is that algorithms will work directly with your data without the need of recording. So basically they will just broadcast to the hub and the providers the results, basically. And that again is going to be done through permissioning. Now, I understand the ethical problem of this, because permissioning is not always done in a very transparent way. Like, in theory, it's all legal and perfect. You have just ticked that you agree to the terms and conditions. But for instance, if we look at the terms and conditions of social networks, they sometimes are longer than the American Constitution in terms of text. So I don't think anybody is going ever to read that, but nevertheless you accept terms and conditions, and therefore you provide access. So it won't be like that people will be listening in their house and the conversation are going to be recorded and listened by people. It's not going to be like that, but certainly your devices will listen to you, and they already do, like the smart speakers, for instance. They already do, but they don't record. So, but what they will do, they will recognize what you're talking about. And the algorithms will determine things like your needs, your habits, and things like that. And that kind of data that is being already elaborated can be shared to third parties without the need of a lot of permissioning.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful tool, you know? And as every powerful tool, like digital transformation, nuclear power, anything, genetics, it can be a great opportunity, a fantastic opportunity for the future, but it can be also a very great danger, because it's capable.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So there is one last question here, which is especially relevant for our sector. As part of the European directives on the performance of building energy, the latest review included the use of digital solutions and building automation and electronic monitoring. Indeed, so we see this trend clearly, that there will be more of those kind of solutions that you just highlighted, Stefano. If we go back to the HEART project, one of the difficulties that we see is when you try to do energy renovation, and so I have a very high energy performance with a lot of insulation. The building in the end needs only a little bit of energy, or almost none, but still some. You need to remain connected, and it will be probably the case for some time still. So the energy neutral homes are quite far away, and especially for the largest part of the stock. This means that this last little part of energy needs to be generated with renewable energy. So, for instance, photovoltaics on top of those buildings. And it's a difficulty if you're talking about buildings with where several families households are living, because that means that this energy is kind of a common good that needs to be shared between all those families. And if one of those households is not energy efficient, it will cost the rest of the building, and you will not achieve this high level of nearly zero energy buildings. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts about that, about how artificial intelligence and smart devices can solve this like cooperation problem, because you can see it as a cooperation game, right, where you need to work together and achieve this high energy performance at building level, and not have kind of a free riders in some apartments that show inefficient energy behavior, consciously or not consciously, by the way. How do you see this? Because this is really the challenge, I think, to reach this nearly zero energy building level. Stefano.
Okay, yes. Energy is really an interesting topic. I think there are basically two things that can be done about that. One thing would be just to have systems that will provide feedback directly in your house, and that doesn't need to be like at a condominium level. No, it doesn't need to be. It can be just on a personal level. It's just your system telling you, look, if you open the windows for 2 hours in the winter time, then of course your bills are going to go up. Or maybe even a small micro activities, like it's very easy to do things like you take a shower and maybe rewarding you with some sort of points, like as a gaming activity, if your shower is going to take maybe a couple of minutes less, or if you're using a slightly cooler water than before. So all these things will probably come very easily in the next few years with a minimum effort. I mean, even a mobile app can do that, right? So it would be already there and would be very easy to implement. In terms of how to deal with renewable energy and how to deal it more as a system, at the moment that we are kind of already there at the utility level, because what will certainly be widespread technology is to have smart meters. And when you've got smart meters and home automation system connected to the smart meters, the flow of data about energy usage will go to the utilities. And so the utilities know, because they do daily and even hourly checks on the availability of renewable energy, if the sun is shining, or if it's raining in the Alps, or if the hydroelectric dams are full, or things like that. So they have almost daily predictions about the availability of energy. And through smart meters, they can pair it with the constant monitoring of the demand. So if they realize that people tend to take I don't know, they tend to get their housing warmer in the evening, or they tend to use their washing machine more often at night or in the morning, etc. They can monitor in real time these behaviors, and then the algorithms can be predictive. And basically they can determine, okay, so in 4 hours there's going to be a peak in power demand, but unfortunately it's winter, and so it's 9 p.m. It's 9 p.m. The sun is not definitely in the sky. It's not a windy day, and then they will kick on some natural gas-fired gas turbines that otherwise will stay idle. So this is definitely already it works like that, but on a city scale, what it will become, it will become also at a micro scale.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting, because one of the things, for instance, we will probably going to see in the next few years is to have small power plants maybe powering a city, a town of say 10,000 inhabitants, and so relatively small, that will have maybe even district heating. So that means basically using the waste heat from the little power plant to heat the homes. So in order to have that, basically we need to have data about these homes. We need to determine their occupancy levels and things like that. And
that's very interesting. That's really indeed the future about the smart grids, right? About at community level and how to share those resources. Indeed, yeah. Thank you very much for that. And by the way, I have to mention that it's also included in the HART cloud-based platform, where they indeed also do weather predictions and use that for the energy storage at micro level. So we are already in the future here. I will give the last word to Max. Do you have anything to add to these kind of challenges among now from here?
Well, no, I think that's what Stefano pointed out is already the direction to go. Smaller, decentralized forms of energy, more monitoring, and social responsibility, cooperatives forms of energy, and data sharing. I think that's a broader issue about how people can become more responsible for the data they produce and they share. And I think that is part of the opportunities also given by the data protection regulation. And I think that we are starting to explore as well new forms of new partnerships to share data between the public sector, the commercial sector, and civil societies in a way that achieves the public good for all concerned. And I think that these are all part of these big discussions that we need to have collectively on how to move forward. So I'll leave it at that.
I think that's an excellent conclusion, Max. That was very useful, very interesting to hear you. So I want to thank you, Stefano, Max, Claudio. I also have to thank Michalis Godis, who is sitting next to me and turning the buttons to make sure that this webinar went well. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you all soon and continue this very interesting discussion. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.